Behind the gilded walls of Buckingham Palace, secrets are guarded more fiercely than crowns. But on one quiet afternoon, Princess Beatrice allegedly uncovered something that would send tremors through the British monarchy. Locked inside Prince Andrew's private safe was a revelation so explosive, it threatened to unravel centuries of royal financial secrecy and redefine the very meaning of loyalty, legacy, and power. For generations, the monarchy has thrived on mystique. Its survival has depended not only on ceremony and tradition, but on silence and unspoken pact that what happens within palace walls remains there. Behind the polished grandeur lies an institution built on discretion, where whispers carry more weight than proclamations and loyalty is measured by what remains unsaid. In this rarefied world, secrets are not merely protected. They are inherited, preserved like heirlooms passed from one royal generation to the next. Princess Beatrice was never meant to stand at the center of such a storm. Known for her quiet composure and unwavering devotion to family, she existed on the periphery of royal drama, far removed from the machinery of power. Yet fate, as it often does within the House of Windsor, had other plans. Caught between filial loyalty and an unsettling sense of duty, she would soon find herself confronting a truth capable of reshaping history. At the heart of it all stood Prince Andrew, a figure both privileged and polarizing. Once celebrated as a decorated naval officer and international envoy, his public image had become entangled in controversy and scrutiny. Within palace corridors, his name stirred unease, casting long shadows over the family he fiercely protected. To Beatrice, he was not a scandal or a headline. He was her father. But even love cannot silence the echoes of suspicion that reverberate through the halls of power. The safe itself was more than steel and secrecy. It was a symbol. Hidden within a restricted royal residence, it represented authority concealed behind tradition, a vault guarding truths too dangerous for daylight. Few knew of its existence. Fewer still had reason or permission to open it. Yet on that fateful afternoon, propelled by urgency and intuition, Princess Beatrice crossed a threshold from which there could be no return. Rumors had begun to circulate in hushed tones. Missing records, discreet transactions, concerns whispered behind closed doors by those who understood that even the crown was not immune to scrutiny. Something was amiss, and the uncertainty weighed heavily upon her conscience. Drawn by instinct and haunted by unanswered questions, she approached the safe with trembling resolve, unaware that history itself seemed to hold its breath. When the mechanism yielded, it did so with a quiet finality that echoed louder than thunder. Inside lay documents whose significance was impossible to ignore, papers that hinted at hidden financial structures, coded accounts, and secrets never intended for public eyes. Each page seemed to whisper of power, privilege, and a carefully guarded legacy. In that moment, the foundations of royal transparency trembled, and the delicate balance between duty and truth began to fracture. What she discovered was not meant to be seen. And as realization dawned, a chilling question emerged, one that would linger long after the safe was opened. Was this discovery an accident born of circumstance, or the inevitable unveiling of a truth destined to surface? As the heavy door creaked open, Princess Beatrice stepped into a truth that would forever alter her destiny and the future of the crown. For Princess Beatrice, loyalty wasn't just a duty, it was a birthright. Raised within the grandeur of royalty yet shadowed by scandal, she faced an impossible choice: protect her father or confront a truth that could destroy him. When she peered into the contents of Andrew's safe, she wasn't just uncovering documents, she was uncovering a moral crisis that would test her identity, her conscience, and her place within the monarchy. From the moment she was born, Beatrice existed in a world where privilege and scrutiny were inseparable. Her childhood unfolded beneath the relentless gaze of public fascination, every smile analyzed, every misstep magnified. She was raised amid tradition and expectation, taught that dignity was armor and silence was strength. Yet behind the grandeur of royal ceremonies and the measured elegance of palace life lay an unspoken understanding. To be royal was to live with judgment, and to endure it without protest. At the heart of her world stood her father, Prince Andrew. To the public, he was a controversial figure whose reputation had weathered storms of criticism. But to Beatrice, he was something far more personal: her protector, her guide, the unwavering presence who reassured her through the turbulence of royal life. He was the man who encouraged her resilience, who whispered confidence when the world seemed harsh. Their bond was not forged in headlines but in quiet moments of trust. And now that trust was being tested by secrets too heavy to ignore. As a modern royal, Beatrice had long walked a delicate line between tradition and transformation. She belonged to a new generation, one expected to embody transparency while honoring centuries of guarded protocol. The world demanded authenticity, yet the institution demanded discretion. It was a balancing act of impossible proportions, and she had performed it with grace. Until now. Because what she had uncovered in that safe was not merely unsettling, it was destabilizing. The documents before her seemed to pulse with significance. Cryptic figures, hidden accounts, records that suggested a reality far more complex than the polished image presented to the public. Each revelation deepened her unease, tugging at her conscience like a relentless tide. This was no trivial discovery. It was a secret capable of shaking the very foundation upon which the monarchy stood. Her heart wavered between two irreconcilable truths. On one side lay loyalty to her father, to her family, to the crown that defined her existence. On the other stood responsibility to integrity, to truth, and to a world that demanded accountability from those who ruled in its name. To remain silent was to protect everything she had ever known. To speak was to risk unraveling it all. Fear pressed heavily upon her, not fear for herself, but for what might follow. A scandal of unprecedented magnitude could erupt, casting shadows over generations and eroding the fragile trust between the monarchy and the people it served. The weight of that possibility settled upon her shoulders, suffocating in its enormity. She understood, with chilling clarity, that history often turned on moments like these, quiet decisions made in solitude, where conscience whispered louder than loyalty. And in that solitude, she felt the tremor of realization. This discovery had the power to reshape not only her destiny, but the narrative of the crown itself. Silence would preserve the illusion. Truth would rewrite it. The burden of secrecy tightened its grip, forcing her to confront the ultimate question: would she protect the institution that defined her, or challenge it in the name of justice? But as her hands trembled over the documents, the shocking details within began to reveal a far deeper and more dangerous royal secret. What Princess Beatrice allegedly uncovered was not merely paperwork, it was a financial blueprint of hidden power. Inside Andrew's safe lay a shadow ledger detailing secret accounts, discrete transactions, and coded transfers that hinted at a parallel system of royal wealth. If authentic, these records suggested that beneath the crown's public image lay a concealed empire operating far beyond the scrutiny of governments and taxpayers. At first glance, the documents appeared ordinary rows of figures, signatures etched in careful precision, and formal seals bearing the quiet authority of privilege. But as Beatrice studied them more closely, patterns began to emerge. Numbers aligned too perfectly. Transfers traced invisible paths across borders. The language was deliberate, cloaked in ambiguity, as though designed to reveal nothing while concealing everything. What she held in her hands was not chaos, but design meticulous, calculated, and profoundly secretive. The ledger told a story written in symbols rather than words. Names were replaced by code names. Destinations were disguised behind cryptic abbreviations. Each entry seemed to whisper of influence moving silently through corridors of power. Offshore accounts surfaced like shadows on the horizon, scattered across distant jurisdictions known for discretion and loyalty to wealth. These were not mere financial arrangements, they were instruments of preservation, ensuring that royal fortunes endured beyond scrutiny, beyond politics, and perhaps even beyond accountability. As she turned each page, Beatrice sensed the presence of hidden trusts linked to assets spanning the globe. Estates, investments, endowments layered within layers of secrecy. The implications were staggering. This was no simple inheritance or private reserve. It was a network, an intricate web woven with precision, sustained by silence, and protected by generations of tradition. The crown, it seemed, possessed not only history and influence but a financial architecture engineered to endure any storm. Among the papers were encrypted documents bearing the insignias of elite institutions' entities, synonymous with power, discretion, and legacy. Their involvement suggested alliances forged in quiet rooms, far from public view. Each signature carried weight. Each seal hinted at agreements never meant for daylight. The deeper she delved, the clearer it became that this was not an improvised system but a carefully maintained structure designed to safeguard royal stability in times of crisis. Some entries alluded to strategic movements of funds during moments of global uncertainty, suggesting that wealth had been repositioned to preserve influence when the crown's authority faced turbulence. These transactions, subtle yet deliberate, implied foresight and calculation. They spoke of a monarchy not merely surviving history, but anticipating it shielding itself against uncertainty through silent financial maneuvering. Interwoven throughout the records were symbols and annotations marks that suggested the involvement of intermediaries acting discreetly on behalf of the royal household. Advisors, financiers, and custodians of privilege appeared to exist within this hidden framework, operating with precision and loyalty. Their role was unmistakable: to protect the crown's financial sovereignty at any cost. The magnitude of the discovery was unprecedented. If revealed, it could ignite questions that would ripple across the nation and beyond. What did transparency mean for an institution built upon secrecy? Could public trust endure such revelations? And had this system been a safeguard for stability or a shield against accountability? As the truth unfolded before her, Princess Beatrice understood with chilling clarity that the ledger was more than a record of wealth. It was a key, a cipher unlocking the hidden mechanics of royal power, exposing an empire concealed behind ceremony and tradition. Yet the deeper Beatrice looked, the more she realized the ledger wasn't just about wealth, it was about control. Every monarchy has its rituals, but few outsiders suspect the existence of its hidden power structures. According to the documents, a secretive inner circle operated quietly behind palace walls, safeguarding royal interests through discreet financial maneuvers. If true, Princess Beatrice had stumbled upon a shadow network that wielded influence not through crowns and ceremonies, but through silence, secrecy, and staggering wealth. As the weight of the ledger settled upon her conscience, its implications deepened into something far more unsettling. The figures and annotations were not random fragments of wealth management. They pointed toward coordination and intricate framework maintained by individuals whose names were absent, yet whose influence echoed between the lines. It was a system designed to function without visibility, guided by loyalty rather than recognition. And at its core, according to the documents, existed a covert advisory group entrusted with managing the monarchy's most sensitive financial affairs. This alleged circle operated beyond the reach of tradition and beyond the scrutiny of public institutions. Bound by confidentiality and proximity to power, its members were believed to act as silent guardians of royal stability. Their role was not ceremonial, it was strategic. They navigated financial storms, shielded assets from volatility, and ensured that the crown remained secure even in times of uncertainty. The implications were staggering. If such a group truly existed, it represented a hidden dimension of royal authority, one preserved not by law, but by trust and discretion. Hints of confidential royal committees emerged from the coded entries. Obscure references suggested deliberations conducted in absolute secrecy, decisions shaped by necessity rather than public transparency. These committees, if authentic, operated like shadows within the institution, balancing the demands of survival against the expectations of tradition. Their existence spoke of a monarchy that adapted quietly to an evolving world, protecting its legacy through careful and calculated restraint. Beatrice's pulse quickened as she deciphered fragments of encrypted correspondence. Code names replaced identities, and subtle markings indicated exchanges between elite figures. The language was deliberate, crafted to obscure meaning from all but its intended recipients. It was a dialogue conducted in whispers, a silent symphony of influence connecting financiers, advisors, and power brokers across continents. Each symbol hinted at alliances forged not for spectacle, but for preservation. These records implied strategic partnerships with some of the world's most formidable institutions. While their involvement remained veiled, their presence suggested a network capable of safeguarding royal interests on a global scale. Such alliances, if true, revealed a monarchy acutely aware of its vulnerabilities, quietly securing its future through calculated collaboration. In moments of crisis, when political and economic landscapes trembled, this unseen framework appeared to mobilize, repositioning resources to ensure continuity and control. The deeper she read, the clearer it became that secrecy was not merely a preference, it was a necessity. Through wars, recessions, and constitutional upheavals, discretion had shielded the crown from instability. Hidden mechanisms preserved its endurance, ensuring that tradition could survive the relentless tides of modernity. The monarchy, it seemed, was not just an emblem of history, but a living institution balancing legacy with survival. Yet beneath this revelation lay unsettling questions. Where did prudence end and concealment begin? Could such secrecy coexist with the transparency demanded by a modern world? And what responsibility did those born into privilege bear toward the truth? The ethical implications weighed heavily, blurring the line between protection and deception. Amid these revelations, Prince Andrew's role took on new significance. The documents suggested he had acted as a custodian, whether by design or duty, entrusted with safeguarding information too sensitive for public scrutiny. His safe, once an object of quiet curiosity, now appeared to be a vault of institutional secrets, its contents reflecting an invisible architecture of power. For Princess Beatrice, the realization was both electrifying and terrifying. Her discovery was not merely personal, it was unprecedented. She had breached a veil that few even knew existed, exposing a realm of influence hidden behind royal decorum. And as the magnitude of what she had uncovered began to settle, so too did the chilling understanding that secrets of this scale were never meant to surface. But as whispers of the discovery began to circulate, the palace faced a threat more dangerous than exposure: internal division. When secrets of this magnitude surface, silence becomes the monarchy's most powerful weapon. As rumors of Princess Beatrice's discovery spread through palace corridors, senior royals were forced into urgent deliberations. Behind closed doors, loyalties were tested, alliances strained, and strategies devised. The question was no longer whether the truth would emerge, but whether the crown could survive the consequences if it did. The atmosphere within the royal institution shifted almost instantly, tightening with a tension that could not be spoken aloud. Whispers traveled swiftly through the upper ranks of the household, carried not by gossip but by instinct. Something had changed. Something dangerous. What had once been confined to a locked safe was now a matter of quiet alarm, compelling the monarchy's most powerful figures to confront a crisis that threatened not just reputations, but the very stability of the crown itself. Emergency meetings were convened in strict confidence, attended by senior members of the royal household and their most trusted advisors. These were not ceremonial discussions but strategic councils, defined by urgency and gravity. Voices remained measured, yet beneath their composure lay unease. Every word was chosen with precision, every pause heavy with consequence. The question on every mind was painfully clear. Could the institution endure the fallout if the truth escaped beyond palace walls? Fear of public scandal loomed large. The monarchy, bound by centuries of tradition, had survived wars, revolutions, and social upheavals, but modern scrutiny posed a different kind of threat. Transparency was no longer optional, it was expected. A revelation of hidden financial mechanisms could ignite outrage, provoke constitutional debates, and challenge the legitimacy of an institution that depended on public trust. The stakes were unprecedented, and the cost of miscalculation could be catastrophic. Within these private deliberations, divisions quietly emerged. Traditionalists argued for containment, insisting that secrecy had always been the monarchy's shield. To them, preservation was paramount. The crown must be protected at all costs. Reformists, however, recognized the shifting tides of public expectation. They understood that concealment could prove more damaging than disclosure, that survival in the modern age required accountability as much as tradition. Between these opposing perspectives, the future of the monarchy hung in delicate balance. Pressure intensified to contain the revelation. Legal teams were summoned, tasked with navigating a labyrinth of protocols, precedents, and potential liabilities. Advisors analyzed every implication, calculating risks with cold precision. Strategies were drafted, contingency plans devised, and narratives carefully shaped to ensure that whatever emerged would do so on the monarchy's terms. This was damage control at its most refined: quiet, calculated, and relentless. Yet beneath the layers of strategy and diplomacy lingered an unsettling question. Was Prince Andrew's knowledge an isolated burden, or had others been aware all along? The possibility cast long shadows over the institution. raising doubts that few dared to voice openly. If the secrets were known, even in fragments, what did that imply about the crown's inner workings and its moral compass? As speculation grew, so too did the threat to public confidence. Trust once fractured is difficult to restore, and the monarchy's survival has always depended upon its perception as a symbol of stability and integrity. The urgency to preserve that image became absolute. Every decision carried weight. Every misstep risked irreversible damage. Amid the quiet storm, Princess Beatrice found herself increasingly isolated, her discovery placing her at the center of a crisis she never sought. She was no longer merely a daughter or a royal, she was the reluctant keeper of a truth that could alter history. And as the institution moved swiftly to protect itself, the burden upon her conscience grew heavier with every passing moment. Yet even as the palace sought to contain the truth, another battle was unfolding, one within Princess Beatrice herself. History rarely remembers those who remain silent, but it never forgets those who dare to speak. As Princess Beatrice grappled with the implications of her discovery, she faced an impossible decision: shield her father and protect the monarchy, or reveal a truth that could redefine her legacy forever. In that moment, the future of royal integrity rested on the conscience of one woman. The weight of her discovery pressed heavily upon her, refusing to fade into denial or doubt. What she had uncovered was not simply a secret, it was a reckoning. Raised to honor duty above all else, Beatrice had been taught that loyalty to the crown was sacred, unshakable, and absolute. Yet now, that very loyalty stood at odds with her conscience. The institution that had shaped her identity demanded silence, while her sense of integrity demanded truth. Between those opposing forces, she found herself suspended in a storm of uncertainty. Royal expectations had never felt heavier. Every step she had taken throughout her life had been guided by tradition. Every word measured against the dignity of her title. To be born into royalty was to inherit both privilege and burden. And now the full magnitude of that inheritance weighed upon her shoulders. She understood the unspoken rule that had preserved the monarchy for centuries: protect the institution at all costs. But at what cost to her own soul? She had become the reluctant guardian of explosive knowledge, information capable of shaking the very foundations of the crown. Each passing hour deepened her isolation, as the truth remained locked within her, a silent echo she could neither ignore nor escape. It was a secret that demanded a choice, and with every heartbeat the stakes grew higher. Her thoughts inevitably returned to her father. Prince Andrew was not merely a public figure entangled in controversy, he was the man who had comforted her in moments of vulnerability, who had encouraged her strength when the world felt unforgiving. To expose what she had found would risk betraying him in the most profound way imaginable. The emotional conflict tore at her, blurring the line between justice and loyalty, between love and responsibility. Yet her devotion to the monarchy remained unwavering. She believed in its purpose, its history, and its enduring symbolism. She did not wish to dismantle it, but to preserve its honor. Could silence protect the crown, or would truth ultimately save it? The question haunted her, echoing through sleepless nights filled with uncertainty and quiet reflection. In her search for clarity, she sought counsel in confidence, turning to trusted voices bound by discretion. These confidential consultations offered perspective but no absolution. Every argument carried consequences, every opinion sharpened the gravity of her dilemma. Remain silent, and the truth would remain buried. Speak, and history itself could be rewritten. She weighed each possibility with meticulous care. Silence promised stability, shielding her family from scandal and preserving the monarchy's fragile equilibrium. But exposure promised accountability, a chance to align tradition with transparency in an era that demanded both. Either path carried a cost, and she alone would bear its consequences. This was more than a decision, it was a defining moment. The course she chose would shape not only her own legacy, but the future of the institution she had sworn to uphold. Courage demanded confrontation, yet tradition demanded restraint. Between them stood a woman torn between two worlds, aware that history would judge her choice long after the echoes of this crisis had faded. The personal cost of truth loomed large. To act meant risking alienation, betrayal, and the erosion of everything she had known. Yet to remain silent meant living with the burden of a secret that could haunt her forever. In that quiet crucible of conscience, Princess Beatrice confronted the ultimate test of character, one that demanded not only loyalty, but bravery. But just as she reached a crossroads, the implications of her discovery began to ripple far beyond palace walls. If revealed, the contents of Andrew's safe wouldn't merely shake Britain, it could reverberate across the world. Governments, financial institutions, and global media would descend upon the story with relentless intensity. The discovery threatened to ignite international controversy, exposing the intricate web of influence that surrounded the crown and challenging the very foundations of royal privilege in the modern age. As the implications of Princess Beatrice's discovery began to unfold in her mind, the enormity of its potential impact stretched far beyond palace walls. This was no longer a private family matter or an institutional dilemma confined to royal corridors. It was a revelation that could disrupt global perceptions of power, privilege, and accountability. The monarchy, long regarded as a symbol of continuity and stability, now stood on the precipice of scrutiny unlike anything it had faced in the modern era. If the truth emerged, its shockwaves would travel swiftly across continents. Financial markets would speculate. Governments would demand clarity. International observers would question whether hereditary institutions could coexist with the transparency expected in the 21st century. The crown, once shielded by reverence and tradition, would find itself subjected to the unforgiving lens of global accountability. The world's media, relentless in its pursuit of scandal and revelation, would seize upon the story with unyielding intensity. Headlines would erupt overnight, dissecting every detail, amplifying every rumor. Analysts would debate its implications, commentators would question its legitimacy, and the public would be drawn into a spectacle that blurred the line between fascination and outrage. For some, it would confirm long-held suspicions about hidden privilege. For others, it would feel like the unraveling of an institution that had endured for centuries. Public reaction would be fierce and divided. Crowds of supporters might defend the monarchy's legacy, insisting on its cultural significance and historical value. Critics, however, would demand answers, calling for transparency and reform. The discovery would ignite debates about wealth, influence, and accountability, forcing society to confront uncomfortable truths about power inherited rather than earned. Beyond Britain, diplomatic tensions could simmer. Nations with long-standing ties to the crown might find themselves navigating delicate political terrain, wary of aligning too closely with controversy. Allies could call for clarification, while adversaries might exploit the moment to challenge the monarchy's credibility. In a world defined by geopolitical strategy and economic interdependence, even whispers of impropriety could alter alliances and perceptions. Financial institutions, too, would feel the tremor. Questions would arise regarding hidden trusts, discrete transactions, and the mechanisms through which royal wealth was preserved. Calls for reform could intensify, demanding stricter oversight and transparency in matters once considered untouchable. The very concept of hereditary privilege would come under renewed examination, its place in modern democracy debated with unprecedented urgency. For the monarchy, the stakes were existential. Its reputation, carefully cultivated through generations, could be transformed overnight. Trust, once fractured, is difficult to restore. And yet, within the crisis lay an opportunity, the chance to evolve, to reconcile tradition with accountability, and to redefine its role in a changing world. Whether the crown would emerge diminished or strengthened depended entirely on how the truth was confronted. As speculation swelled and anticipation gripped the public imagination, one undeniable truth emerged. This discovery represented a potential turning point in royal history. It was not merely a scandal waiting to unfold, but a reckoning capable of reshaping the narrative of monarchy in the modern age. Yet amid the speculation and chaos, one question remained unanswered: what ultimately became of the documents? Just as suddenly as they appeared, the alleged documents seemed to vanish into the shadows. Were they secured, suppressed, or quietly sealed away forever? Within palace corridors, silence reigned. But outside, speculation intensified. Had Princess Beatrice protected the monarchy or buried the most explosive financial revelation in royal history? In the days that followed her discovery, an eerie stillness settled over the royal institution. No statements were issued. No confirmations were offered. The absence of acknowledgement spoke louder than any proclamation. What had once existed in ink and paper now seemed to dissolve into uncertainty, leaving behind only whispers and unanswered questions. For an institution built upon discretion, silence was not merely a response, it was a strategy. Theories began to circulate in hushed tones, each more tantalizing than the last. Some believed the documents had been secured within sealed royal archives, hidden deep within the labyrinth of history where sensitive records were preserved for generations. These archives, shrouded in confidentiality, were said to safeguard truths too delicate for public knowledge, sealed not for destruction, but for time itself to forget. If the ledger had been placed there, it would remain untouched, locked away beyond scrutiny and beyond reach. Others suggested a more calculated containment. According to these whispers, legal and financial experts may have intervened, quietly neutralizing the potential fallout. Suppression, they claimed, was not an act of deceit but of preservation, a means of shielding the monarchy from chaos. To some, it was prudent damage control. To others, it was a dangerous concealment. The line between protection and secrecy blurred into ambiguity, deepening the mystery that now enveloped the crown. Yet the uncertainty refused to fade. Rumors persisted that copies of the documents might exist, duplicates hidden beyond palace walls, waiting for the right moment to surface. The possibility of their reappearance lingered like a storm on the horizon, threatening to erupt when least expected. In the absence of truth, speculation flourished, fueling an enduring fascination that neither time nor silence could extinguish. Within royal circles, the discovery became an unspoken legend. Conversations paused at its mention, glances exchanged with knowing restraint. Those closest to the institution sensed its gravity, even if they never dared to voice it. The monarchy had long mastered the art of dignified silence, and this perhaps was its most formidable defense. Secrets were not erased, they were absorbed, preserved within the quiet machinery of tradition. Beyond the palace gates, public curiosity intensified. Historians speculated, commentators debated. The world, captivated by the enigma, questioned whether the truth had been deliberately buried or respectfully safeguarded. Unresolved secrets possess a unique power. They ignite imagination, invite suspicion, and endure far longer than facts ever could. The mystery of the vanished documents became a narrative of its own, echoing through headlines and conversations alike. At the center of it all stood Princess Beatrice, bound by loyalty and silence. Had she chosen to protect her family and preserve the crown's stability? Or had she sacrificed transparency in the name of duty? The answer remained elusive, concealed behind the same veil that had safeguarded the monarchy for centuries. And so, the legend endured an unanswered question, lingering at the heart of royal history. For in the world of kings and queens, silence is not emptiness, it is power. And sometimes, the truths that shape history are the very ones that remain hidden. And as the echoes of the discovery fade into legend, its implications continue to haunt the legacy of the modern monarchy. Some discoveries rewrite history, others redefine the future. What Princess Beatrice allegedly found in Andrew's safe may never be fully revealed, but its shadow looms over the monarchy like a silent reckoning. Whether myth or hidden truth, the story has ignited questions about power, privilege, and accountability. And in doing so, it has forever changed how the world perceives the wealth and the secrets of the British crown. Long after the whispers faded from palace corridors, the implications of that fateful discovery continued to resonate, shaping perceptions and provoking debate. The alleged contents of the safe became more than a secret. They evolved into a symbol, an enduring question mark hanging over one of the world's oldest institutions. Even without confirmation, the mere possibility of hidden financial truths was enough to alter the narrative surrounding the monarchy. For in royal history, what remains concealed often holds as much power as what is revealed. Secrecy has always been the crown's most enigmatic companion. It has preserved stability, protected sovereignty, and sustained the mystique that elevates monarchy beyond mere governance. Yet secrecy is a double-edged sword. It inspires reverence, but it also invites suspicion. In an era defined by transparency and accountability, the delicate balance between privacy and public trust has never been more precarious. The alleged discovery forced the world to confront a difficult question. Can an institution rooted in tradition adapt to the expectations of a modern, questioning society? At the heart of this evolving narrative stands Princess Beatrice, a figure once peripheral to royal intrigue, now emblematic of generational change. Whether by destiny or circumstance, she emerged as a symbol of a new era, one in which loyalty must coexist with integrity. Her alleged role in uncovering a hidden truth transformed her from a quiet royal into a reluctant protagonist in a story of power, conscience, and consequence. In her dilemma, many saw the reflection of a monarchy at a crossroads caught between preserving its legacy and embracing reform. This tension between tradition and transformation lies at the core of the modern crown. For centuries, it has survived by adapting, quietly evolving while maintaining the illusion of permanence. But the world has changed. Public expectations have shifted. Transparency is no longer a virtue, it is a demand. The alleged revelations surrounding Andrew's safe ignited a conversation that transcended speculation, compelling observers to reassess what they believed about royal wealth, privilege, and accountability. And yet, the true power of this story lies not in what is known, but in what remains unanswered. The absence of certainty has only deepened its intrigue, reinforcing the monarchy's aura of mystery while challenging its relevance in a contemporary age. Was the discovery a hidden truth buried for the sake of stability, or merely a legend born from suspicion and circumstance? The ambiguity endures, inviting endless interpretation and ensuring that its echoes will linger in public consciousness. As history continues to unfold, the alleged discovery stands as a reminder of the enduring interplay between power, loyalty, and legacy. It challenges the perception of royalty as untouchable, urging audiences to reconsider the delicate balance between tradition and truth. In doing so, it transforms speculation into reflection, myth into possibility, and secrecy into an enduring enigma. Because in the world of royalty, the greatest secrets are never truly lost, they simply wait for the right moment to be discovered.